Recording.
All right. Hi, I'm Nicky Lewenson, Head of Business Development with Team Champagnosian, and I am here today with the incredible Liz Barletta, real estate attorney from Ligris and Associates, and top agent Heather Ferrari from Ed Grable & Co. out of the Keller Williams in Cambridge. I'm really excited to be here today. And we're going to give a little overview of the home buying process, talk about what's going on in the market, and answer some questions that we keep getting asked.
Exactly.
All right. So who wants to kick us off? I have a good question here for Heather that's been entered in. And a few of these buyers want to know, what is the best way to start the home buying process, and what are you seeing out there?
So the best way to start the home buying process, I find, is to speak with a buyer's agent. So many of you, since you have access to the internet, and there's so much that we can find online now, have done a lot of research prior to speaking with an agent, which I think is great, because a lot of buyers that I meet come, pretty savvy about the market already, which is great, and others don't, and that's awesome too. So I would say the first step is speaking with a great buyer's agent who can walk you through the process and see, ask probing questions and see if you're actually really ready to buy, because you might be ready to go but haven't had your pre-approval yet. Maybe you don't have a down payment saved yet. So just talking about your goals and just seeing kind of a timeline, because there's different things you can do if you're a year out, or if you're 3 months out, or if you have a lease coming up. There's so many different ideas I can give to, or any buyer's agent can give you to help you kind of create the path. So I would say buyer's agent, getting pre-approved, and making a plan for
I think that's really important what you were saying, Heather, because I think a lot of people, they think maybe, oh, well, I'm not going to want to buy for like another year, but it's probably important, or I think it is important for them to, even if they're identifying the fact that they want to in the future, to just talk to you sooner rather than later so you can help guide them, right?
Absolutely. I'm working with someone right now who I met them last January, and we've been talking off and on since last February. So I mean, that's totally normal. And it's fun because I also have certain clients that they're like, oh, I'm going to wait to see if the prices come down. I'm going to wait another year. And it ends up being, a really long relationship. Sometimes it's very short, and then you're like, oh, that was too fast. But it is really interesting. There's a lot that you can do ahead of time. I agree, because, and why not talk to some professionals who do this, every day to kind of, learn.
Yeah.
Also, do you find like sometimes somebody will be referred over to us to get a pre-approval, and they're like, I'm not looking to buy for 6 months, 9 months, a year. I just want to see what my affordability is at this point. And then they have a really good conversation with our team. They find out how much they can purchase. They find out that there's all these different down payment misconceptions. They don't need necessarily to save 20% to get a mortgage. And then next thing you know, they have their pre-approval in hand. They feel super empowered. They go back to Heather, and then they're like, oh my gosh, I found a house. And we're like, wait, you weren't looking for 6 to 9 months. And they just have this confidence, right?
Yeah. Exactly. When that happens, I'm always like, this happened to clients in Dorchester this year. It was like the third house that we saw. They're like, we woke up still thinking about it. What do you think? Is this house really special? And it was really special, Victorian, beautiful house. But it was funny because I was not trying to talk them out of it, but I'm like, it's very soon, and they couldn't be here in this house. But it can happen so quick like that,
Really
and then
can.
other people a really long time.
I've only bought the first house I've seen twice.
Yeah, I know. We only saw like 4. That's awesome. I know, it's true.
It happens though. And sometimes if you wait, you're always thinking about that house that you wish you had just known. So it's good to be really educated going into it. And that way, when you see the right house, When do people usually start talking to you, Liz, in the process? When should they get an attorney involved?
Great question. So it's funny because I feel like everybody automatically thinks about the 2 most important people, which is true, are the lender and the realtor, because you need to know how much you can afford you need a mortgage to buy your home, and then you need to, you need help identifying that home. So I think a lot of people, it's kind of a shock when they're like, oh, our offer's accepted, you need an attorney. And that's kind of one of the funny conversations that I always have with clients when I'm referred is, this is what I actually do. This is how I can help you, because for the most part, people don't think of us in the process until the offer has been accepted. So to answer your question, most of the time we are involved once the offer has been accepted. But many times I have some agents and lender partners who they like to introduce us before at the beginning of the process. So that way, especially since things happen so quickly in this market, that way they don't have to start interviewing who they want to work with at that point. I have identified prior to even looking at a home, who the lender is going to be, who their attorney is going to be, who they feel comfortable with. And I love that. And that's also a really great tool for home buyers in the event that there's something quirky or weird about the offer that they want to submit. Sometimes they just want to have that second set of eyes look at the offer. And if I've already been incorporated into that sort of that team at the beginning before the process really gets started, it's much easier to have that comfortability with the clients. So the majority of the time, once the offer has been accepted, but oftentimes when the offer is accepted, but sometimes prior to that when the process hasn't even started. And Nikki, actually, that makes me think of a question for you. So I think from my perspective, not all lenders are created equal. There's different kinds of lenders out there. Maybe talk to that point and what people can expect and the types of lenders that are available to them.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I actually get it all the time because people call and they say, I have this pre-approval and my realtor suggested that we call your team instead because they said it's going to be harder to get an offer accepted with this, or time frames for the closing might be longer. So, every lender works a little differently. The way I can only really speak to how our team works. I work with Sean Panosian. He's the #1 lender in the entire country out of 500,000. And we are local here in the Boston area, but licensed in all 50 states, so can help everywhere. And what we do is we do a full, thorough pre-approval for people. So instead of like just a pre-qualification or a quick call saying like, tell me your income and assets, what happens is when somebody comes over to our team to get a pre-approval, our team, either Shant or one of the other LOs on our team, will do a full look at their credit, their income, and their assets, and really make sure that everything they think about their credit, income, and assets is actually the case with their credit, income, and assets. I can't tell you how many times somebody has a credit report run, they think they have a certain score and there's a mistake on there, or there's something they hadn't expected on there. That if we do it in advance, we can get it cleared up or help them with it. And if it's like the day before or after their offer gets accepted, it's a little bit more challenging. But what we do on our team is we make sure that everything is exactly as people think it's going to be and it checks out, and that we help them understand what their affordability is, like how much they can borrow. And then we also help them find their comfort zone of what they do want to borrow, because just because you can borrow a whole lot of money doesn't mean that's going to fit your lifestyle, your budget, in with all the other expenses you have. We also spend a lot of time talking to them about their down payment options, and that it's not just 20%. You can do 20%, but there are other options too to maybe help you get into a house sooner. Interest rates are historically low, so it's a great time to borrow money. And we really want people to be fully prepared so that when they go back to Heather to shop, they're confident. They know what their down payment option is. Like I said, they know what they can afford, what they want to afford, and they also know what their closing costs are going to be, and they know what their monthly payments are generally going to be as well. That way they shop with confidence and they're not blindsided at any point of the process about what their financial responsibility is going to be.
That's amazing. I have this horror story that a client who unfortunately went to a local branch of the bank that they choose, and they got a pre-qualification rather than a pre-approval, and they had just had a conversation, or maybe I'm getting them confused, but they just had a conversation like, this is how much I make, this is my credit score. They didn't verify anything. And then after the offer is accepted, after they paid for an inspection, after they paid for an appraisal, something that would have been discovered at that onset had they spoken with a team like yours who actually verified what the person was saying, the deal fell apart for something that would have been discovered during that process. So it was all the time wasted, the hopes and dreams of this person who found the house of their dream. Like, it's just awful. And that's why it's so important to work with a team like yours that actually verifies what the clients think that they can afford.
Yeah. And, you know, I think it's also really important to have a lender that has a ton of experience under their belt. Like Sean's done over 15,000 closings, like mortgages, in his time, which is a lot of practice, right?
Yeah,
you know, he's seen all different situations. He has a super nerdy lending mind, so he can see how one borrower fits with a certain loan program, and he can really assess that. There's a lot of pieces to a mortgage because you're borrowing a lot of money, you know, and if you have a lender that really understands everything and has a proven track record and, you know, a really good satisfaction rating from their past clients, I think that's a really great sign of who you want to be working with.
I think that reminds me, like, there's people that ask, well, you know, who would you recommend? Who is your team? And I'm always talking about, you know, preferred lenders like Guaranteed Rate and Liz, and, you know, they're just like, why can't we just go find someone online? And these are their exact reasons why. It's like, we do this every day. We see things happen like this, and it's so disappointing and discouraging when, you know, these are really not difficult, you know, situations that could be avoided. So, and Liz, I just wanted to mention before, when we were talking about attorneys, I do talk about the attorney in my initial buyer presentation.
That's why you're the best.
A very important part of the process. So just to let you know that, because I don't like that idea of your offers accepted and then we're talking about an attorney. That seems a little, it just seems like, well, that came out of nowhere. And I
all the time. And it is shocking.
I'd just be like, I need an attorney. No one told me this. So I try to make sure that they're really educated about that up front, even if they are really far out from buying, because I think that's important to know that they're going to have a really solid team behind them. And I love what you said too about coming into the process even before the offer, because as you know, in the Boston area, we deal a lot with condos and condo docs. And this happened just last night. You know, my clients were looking through condo docs, and, you know, I mean, I'm not going to be looking through hundreds of pages of condo docs, but I'm looking for specific things.
Yeah.
But I'm not an attorney. So you know, this is what your attorney is for. And it's really nice because if you were there in the process, you could. And if I had a question, it would be really easy to just bring you in. And maybe that would be the deciding factor, whether they're going to offer or not. Because as we know, if it's in the condo docs, we're not going to be able to change it probably. So could be a deal breaker in some situations.
Absolutely. And I think especially for those who are looking in the Boston area, condos are, I mean, I would say really one of our bread and butters for sure, because we have a lot of first-time home buyers looking close to the city, and they are all in either multis that have been converted into condos, or just some of the larger condo buildings in the area. But it's so important to have an attorney who will actually review them. It's amazing to me how many agents tell me, you know, once we start working together and they see that I send them their clients a little summary of what the condo docs sort of little bullet points, they're like, oh my God, I don't think the other attorney ever read them that they used to use. So we read them. Not only do we read them, we give them a little cheat sheet for our buyers, basically identifying the key parts of what home buyers actually care about. Because as you mentioned, there are so many pages. It could be a 40-page master deed and another 30-page declaration of trust. Like, that's a lot of legalese to kind of comb through, but we do it all the time. So it's easy for us to identify, okay, these are how many trustees there are. This is how much your percentage interest is in the condo. This is how many votes you have to get something changed. This is how many pets you're allowed, or are even pets allowed. So that's stuff that's so important to home buyers. And one of the things that has actually saved some transactions, I had a client, poor thing, she has 3 cats and 2 dogs. And the condo docs actually only said that only 2 pets were permitted. So the agent actually called me before they submitted the offer and said, hey, this is what the condo docs say. Do you think that we can still negotiate? And I was like, well, let's put in a condition that they're going to provide us approval from the trust, and then we should be okay, depending on what the trust documents say. And it gave that ability. So that got the deal done. If not, she would have probably moved on to a different condo or another transaction, or not even buy for a while.
Or been stuck if you didn't put the condition in. And then, I mean, who's going to part with their pets?
Right.
I mean, but
yeah. It's definitely that's like our key. Like, can you lease the property and how many pets? Those are like the number two questions, the top two questions we get on condo docs, but super important to do.
Right. Because what are the rental restrictions? I mean, if there's no rental restrictions, I talked to someone about this over the weekend. There's no rental restrictions on this property. So, I mean, depending on the area that they're in, this could be an Airbnb downstairs. So you need to think about if that's a place you want to, or maybe that's really attractive to you, because maybe you want to do that down the line, but we really have to be looking at all that.
So one of my developer clients was actually talking about how to change condo docs and saying, well, do we really want to put any restrictions? I'm like, yeah, you want to put something, because the majority of people, you know, if they're investors, of course they want flexibility, but if you're somebody who's a neighbor and you're buying it as a primary residence, you don't want to have like basically a hotel in the unit next to you. So having some kind of restriction is important for the most buyers out there.
Yes.
So Heather, actually talking about the home buying process itself, I feel like there's a lot of people out there who are talking about how hot the market is, how difficult maybe it is to get an offer accepted, and people are kind of waiving some contingencies. And what do you think about the waiving of an inspection?
So
is it important to do?
I do think, I mean, personally, I don't tell clients to waive home inspections. That would be very rare that would happen. There are other ways that we can waive a home inspection by still having a home inspection. So that's a way that a lot of my clients are strategic with their offers. So our offers, you know, are still competitive among the other offers that are waiving home inspections. I think there's a couple of instances where you could waive a home inspection and still feel pretty comfortable. One is in a professionally managed building that looks in pretty good shape. I think, you know, if they have a hefty amount in the reserve fund, which means, you know, there's a lot of money in there in case something does go wrong, you know, you could maybe do it in that case, but I generally do not suggest it. Really, the only time that people do waive inspections in my clients is when they are really pushing for that, and we have a conversation about it. And you know, I'm there to advise. I'm not there to make the decisions for them. So if they really want to waive the inspection, that is their choice, and we will do as much research, and I will be pointing out every single flaw, which I do anyway, that I can see on the property. So we're really aware, you know, of ages of things and just everything that we can find out about the property. But generally, no, I don't like to waive those. There are a lot of people that do those. So if you also have the mortgage contingency, which I would also never suggest waiving, you know, that's two contingencies right there. There are ways that we can make the home inspection more attractive by putting a number amount on it with how much you would feel comfortable with, you know, let's say $5,000, $10,000. If that comes back in the home inspection, you're fine with that. So we have discussions about that. Also doing like a really quick home inspection within a couple of days of an accepted offer can be attractive. So it's not being dragged out for a week or anything like that. So
a lot of creative ways.
Yes. And I also have a lot of conversations with listing agents in terms of like, I really prep my buyers about home inspections. So I'm not going, yeah, let's get a home inspection and, you know, feel free to walk away. No, that if you're putting an offer in with me and we are doing a home inspection, you are fully aware that there's going to be many items that come up in the home inspection, many common items that we're not going to be negotiating. Some big ticket items, you know, and, you know, structure, plumbing, electric, you know, the major, you know, the heating system, maybe the roof, things like that. Yes, we can talk about those, but, you know, a couple outlets aren't working.
Yeah.
No, that happens at almost every property.
Heather, you have so much knowledge that you're prepping your buyers with and your clients with when they go out to look. What are things that people should be asking their agent when they interview to make sure that their agent is going to be, or they can just call you. But what are some things, if somebody's watching this from outside of the area and in other parts of the country, like what are some things that you should be asking your agent to find out if they're well qualified and experienced to help you as a buyer?
Cool. Well, something I got asked a lot in the beginning, which I don't think is important, to be honest with you, is how long you've been in the business. I don't think that's that important. I find a lot of newer agents actually work really hard. And I was this way myself, that I needed to get an A+ review from every single client in the beginning because I didn't have a reputation yet. So I don't think that, and that seems to come up often. And I really don't think that matters as much as, you know, how are you going to be strategic in offers? So across the country right now, it is not really a buyer's market. It's more of a seller's market. It's extremely competitive out there. So what am I doing? Am I just throwing in an offer, you know, of an offer of 20 and hoping for the best? And, you know, so I would ask them, how are they strategic and what's their average number of offers that they put on, you know, for clients? Because, you know, is it 5? Is it 2? What is it? So I would definitely ask those questions. I think being really committed to real estate is important. Are you full-time? Do you do something else? I did a video recently about this. My husband was like, that's a little bit rude to the part-time agents. And I'm like, it's not though. Like, if you're doing it full-time every day, and this is what you do and you live and breathe the industry, you're going to have more knowledge. You're going to have more relationships. So I would also ask that, what are your relationships? Do you have lenders you work with, attorneys, home inspectors? I really like to be a one-stop shop for my clients, locksmiths. I mean, I love, and it's amazing too, because sometimes, you know, they'll reach out a year later, you know, I'm sorry to bother you. Do you have a recommendation for this? And it brings me so much joy that they think of me for, you know, a restaurant recommendation. I mean, anything, you know, so an agent that really has a lot of knowledge and relationships, I would say too, is important.
And I don't think I agree with what you're saying, like part-time versus full-time. I mean, there are great part-time agents, but it's even like when you think of it as attorneys, like there are plenty of smart attorneys who have a general practice and they may do an okay job at a real estate transaction, but they, you know, with us, we are a team that just does real estate.
Yes.
Same thing with Sean's team. All you do is mortgages. If you go to a
residential,
bank down the street, yeah. If you go to a bank down the street, they have to open savings accounts, they have to open CDs, all these different random things. How are you going to be the best at at mortgages? You're not. You're going to be spread thin.
Nikki, that's great too. Sorry, that's great that you said residential only. I think that's awesome. And Liz, I agree, because when people are like, my friend's happens all the time. My friend's an attorney. I'm like, are they a real estate attorney? What is their name? I need to look them up.
Yeah. And real estate is one of those parts of law that if you're out in court all day, you cannot answer the phone and be getting all the paperwork ready and going through, you know, crossing every T, dotting every I for your purchase. So
totally. That's one of the things I always tell clients who ask, maybe even investors who are like, oh, do you even do landlord tenant? No, I do real estate conveyancing, closings, and that's it. Because if just exactly like you said, any time you have to go into court, you're not able to look at your phone. So that's time that's passed.
And I find
not getting.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. I find the fee structure is always really different too. Like if somebody doesn't use a real estate attorney, they end up paying like 2 or 3 times as much as if they had just used a real estate attorney, because a real estate attorney is typically a flat fee, correct?
Exactly. So I actually had a deal that got referred to me. This was not the person's first time purchasing. They told me a horror story from when they bought the first time, that it was a friend of the family. So they automatically thought that they were getting some kind of a deal. And in fact, what they ended up getting was a $5,000 bill after closing. That was an hourly bill for the amount of time that the attorney spent. What a family discount. Yeah. So whereas we, like you mentioned, Nikki, we are all flat. I don't want to say all. There are attorneys out there who do practice real estate conveyancing who do charge hourly. We don't. We charge a flat fee to our clients. Oftentimes it's a discounted fee when we're also closing for the bank, like guaranteed rate. So oftentimes, you know, it's a fixed fee. You know what to expect. It's not going to be a shock at the end, like that poor clients.
Yeah.
Nikki, that was a great point too, because I worked with an attorney last year that was brought in with my clients, and it was hilarious because I'm like, when can we get in touch? And she was in court constantly. She didn't work weekends. She wouldn't give out her cell phone. So, and it's like, it's a relationship with my clients. So I'm just saying to them, she's, you know, I'm not sure how to get in touch with her. And like our whole job and why we like working together and why it's great to have a team is because we know how to communicate with each other. we are here to make the process very smooth. And I feel like when you have like random people, a mortgage, a lender, an attorney from here, an agent from here, you're figuring out how to work together. It's just totally different. And I mean, I'm sure for you too as well, a huge priority for me is to make it a smooth process for my clients, because it's already very stressful for them. So I want them to like not have any worries about what's going on in the back end with what we're doing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that like a real estate attorney and somebody who's just doing mortgages instead of working with like a local bank, we're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right when your people are thinking of making their offer. So as Heather, like, like you're working on the weekends and people have questions on Sunday at 5 after they saw their dream house. What's amazing is to be able to get in touch with Liz and ask her the questions, call our team and be able to come up with strategic dates for their offer, make sure that, the mortgage makes sense with the taxes or whatever that, for that specific property, and work with the agent. And if you have an attorney who's not a real estate attorney and they're not available on the weekend, or a bank that closes at 5 on Friday, you can't make a competitive offer in a timely fashion on Sunday.
Exactly. And as you know, when we're putting those offers in, I like to do them of the exact amount. So very often we have to be, redoing a letter, and it's like, if the lender is not available, what are we supposed to do? So then we're using their current pre-approval, which maybe is 100,000 higher than the offer price, and then we're showing all of our clients' financial cards to someone. I don't feel comfortable with that. So it's really important to have, people like we're saying who are available.
And even just for the listing agents to potentially accept your offer, that, who you're working with has such a strong weight with that. The fact that if a listing agent can call up, Sean's team and say, hey, we just got an offer submitted and you're the lender, how are your dates looking? Whatever they need to do to like reinforce the power of the offer is huge. And if you're, like Nikki said, like if you're talking to a 9-to-5 bank, Monday to Friday, you're not going to get that kind of responsiveness. And that makes the listing agent side, for the most part, nervous.
Yeah. I was just having this conversation with somebody actually earlier this morning, and I was talking to them about how we offer, one of our 4 uniques is that we offer strategic offer consultation. And part of that is calling the listing agent anytime it's asked, so if Heather's putting in an offer with a client, we'll call the listing agent and talk to them and tell them that we've looked at the credit, income, and assets. We're not giving out any financial information, but we're saying it's strong. We also send our credentials as a lender as being number 1 out of 500,000. 94% of our clients say they'd use us again. And that doesn't happen if you don't close what you say you're going to close.
Right.
And also going through the dates. I mean, we can close if somebody has a pre-approval in 21 to 30 days for a purchase, which makes people more competitive in this market if that's an important thing to the seller, right? Can really make you stand out. And working closely with Heather and making sure that any extra edge the buyer can have, we want to help them with.
Definitely. Nikki, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So what can future buyers do right now to kind of get ready for the mortgage process? If you could just kind of touch on what is important, what do people need, in terms of credit, money saved, all those parts of,
Sure.
mortgage.
So I think the best thing anyone can do if they're thinking about buying a house, either next week or in 5 years, is talk to our team and go through your credit, income, assets. Take the time to have a call with our team. We have an online digital secure application. You can do it. It doesn't mean you're getting a mortgage tomorrow. So it's like no cost to you and no risk to you. And let us look at all of your financials, your credit, your income, your assets. And really our team will coach you on what you can afford in this moment and what you would need to do to save or help you come up with, this is what you need. If you need then a financial advisor to help you put together a plan for your future, we're happy to refer those. But this is what you could afford now, and this is how you can get to what your affordability would be if you're trying to get somewhere else. And really having a thorough look at your credit, income, and assets is going to kind of let you know where your feet are and figure out how to get started in the path that you want to go, or you might surprise yourself and be there. You know, a lot of times people are very stuck on a 20% down payment. Like they, you know, our parents say, like, you know, don't put less down. Like that's how we got into this mess in 2008, like all this stuff. And it's not necessarily true. I mean, we always want people to be able to afford their mortgage. We never want somebody to be in a situation where they're biting off more than they can chew. But there are a lot of great programs that are a lot less than 20% down now. So sometimes when the down payment is the hurdle people are facing, they'll realize that actually it's not the hurdle they thought it was, and they can go ahead. So I think the earlier you can get pre-approved, the better. And then also you can work to improve different parts of your credit if you need to, which is going to help you as well. So it's never too early to start with us, especially if you are a self-employed borrower. You know, there's a little bit more work to do up front. However, once you're pre-approved by us, you can call us for your strategic offer consultation. We can do property specific pre-approvals, and then we can close on your purchase in 21 to 30 days, or, you know, if you need longer, that's fine with us. So getting that work done up front really allows you to then go with Heather and do a good solid search, knowing what you can afford, or also thinking about how you want to plan for the future so you can afford something different. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was really
okay.
Thorough and awesome. I loved it. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. So if somebody wants to start the home buying process with you, Heather, like how do they get in touch with you, and how do you choose who you're going to work with, and how do you decide to take on different clients?
Thanks for asking. So they can call me or text me or email me or direct message me on Facebook or Instagram at Heather Ferrari Homes. So multiple modes of communication, and I like to communicate the way that my clients like to communicate. So however that is. And how you're asking, how do I decide to work
like with so when somebody comes to you, like what do you first do to figure out if you're a good fit for them and like help them get started?
So we usually just, usually it's a phone call. We talk on the phone for a little while. I like to hear about their goals, their real estate goals, their goals in general, and what is prompting this, home buying idea that they have. And it's different with a first-time home buyer or someone who's bought homes multiple times or a couple times. So we have that conversation. And then what I do is set up used to be either coffee or at our office, but since we are in these times, we do a Zoom call. And it's about a 30 to 45 minute Zoom call, which I love doing those. And I go through information about our team, and I go through the whole process of what it's like to buy a home in Massachusetts, from the very beginning of meeting your buyer's agent and lender to closing day and beyond that. So I have visuals that really help, and then I follow up with blank offer paperwork. Just some people really like a lot of information, so I always ask that too. Do you like a lot of information, or do you not like a lot of information? I think especially for people who've bought before, they kind of trust you right away, but it takes a little while with new people to build trust. So I tend to, over communicate and give them a lot in the beginning. And then it gets to a point where they're like, we trust you, just do it. I mean, sometimes to the point it's like, looking at me to like choose their house, which I had wonderful buyers this summer who have become really good friends that bought sight unseen. And Ed, I'm like, this is so much pressure. He's like, why are you stressed about this? I'm like, because I just met them. They're wonderful. They're not gonna see this place. I need to make sure it's great. So I would just say that's like the normal process. And then after that, when they're ready to start seeing places after they have their pre-approval, everybody's very different right now. So I have some clients that really want me to go preview properties and, on FaceTime, and we do that and do like virtual tours. And something that's changed this year too is I give a lot of information about the property before they see it, because we're not really in a time where you're like just jumping from open house to open house.
Right.
It's just not that. Right. And so yeah, just there for them. If they want to go to an open house, that's great. We do a lot of private appointments now, but I kind of, it's different every time, as you both know. Just really depends on the clients.
That's great. It sounds like it sounds like so much fun to start with you.
Yeah.
It sounds like fun to start with you too also. Yeah. And that's so kind to say.
Liz, can I ask you, I want to ask Liz one question. Yeah. What is the biggest pitfall you find people fall into as far as legal stuff that goes on with closings? So I know there's a lot of them that you protect.
Just in general pitfalls, I feel like not having expectations set for you, I think, is the number one pitfall that professionals do, like basically impart on their clients. If you as a realtor, as a loan officer, and as an attorney aren't setting expectations for your client, you're doing them a disservice, and just they're going to have not as great of an experience. And that's what's so important with what Heather was mentioning, and what you do too, is you set those expectations so there's less disappointment. Pitfall for, I think the biggest one, I think was what we touched on, especially my first time home buyers who are buying condos, not having an attorney who's actually reading those condo docs and explaining it to them is really horrible, because at the end of the day, there are things that can be, the majority of the time when an offer is accepted with condos, there's usually contingency for satisfactory review of condo docs. And if you don't take that time to actually read through it for your client, you're setting them up for potentially a horrible experience that's going to trickle down to everybody who touched and worked with them. So it's not just me as an attorney, it's everybody who referred me. So it's really important to make sure you take that time to do your job. And I think the other pitfall I would say is not explaining documents. I think especially nowadays we're in such a fast environment where everything's clicking, and not having the time to actually explain a document to a client is also a huge pitfall, because we want to make sure the clients understand what it is that they're signing at the closing, but also understand their monthly payment, how it comes about. And if you have all these questions post-closing that should have been answered at closing, that's a serious problem.
That's really helpful. I just imagine someone having to put their dog on a diet because like they didn't realize there was a weight restriction at the condo docs.
I've heard stories about that type of thing.
He's 60 pounds, not 50.
Right. Or having to literally list their property a week later because a trustee knocked on the door and said, you're only supposed to have this amount of dogs. And I've seen more than that. Like, that just sucks.
Those are sad stories that you definitely help avoid. Well, Any other questions before we wrap up?
This was great. I feel like I learned some things today too, ladies. Thank you.
Yay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you.
If anybody is looking to buy a house and needs help, Heather is available by text, call, Facebook Messenger, direct message, carrier pigeon, and Liz and I are available as well for anything.
I'm sure in all those ways. And we are always happy to, no matter where you are in the process, to have a conversation with you. I think for a lot of people, the process of buying or selling a home, and what I'll be doing at some point soon, buying and selling at the same time. And I'm like, I do this for a living. Why is this stressing me out? But it is. So, no matter where you are in the journey, it helps to talk to people. So feel free to reach out to any
Maybe that's our next video, Heather.
Selling at the same time.
Yeah. I think every real estate agent, lender, and attorney should have to buy or sell or at least pack up all their stuff every 5 years and pretend they're moving. Just to remember how it feels.
Absolutely.
It's so true. It is. It's so true. So thank you, Liz, for putting this together. This was a lot of fun.
I'm so glad to see all your beautiful faces. And if there's any questions, like Nikki said and Heather said, please contact us. I'm sure we'll all be sharing it. And feel free to send us personal messages if you have those, or comment on the video.
Thank you.
All right, ladies. Bye.
Bye.